people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
And welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. This morning we're speaking with Dr. Vanessa Enoch, who is running for Ohio's 8th Congressional District against incumbent Republican Warren Davidson. Thank you again for joining us. In the Trump administration, immigration has been a major headline. A lot of talk about build that wall and obviously the recent deportations and everything that's happened down on the border. What is your take on the Trump administration's plan of attack, so to speak, on the immigration issue? And why does it seem like every administration kind of seems to kick the can down the road, so to speak?
You know, I think I've heard from so many people in the district about how troubling the idea of separating families are at the border. Mm-hmm. The significant thing I think that I take away from what I've seen is that if you look at the policies that were already in place, they were working. So it concerns me that this administration decided to take a different approach and to begin to go after mothers and children and to incarcerate them. And, you know, there are stories about mothers who are breastfeeding and babies being snatched out of the arms of breastfeeding moms at the border. And I can't see that they would be a significant threat to anyone. So it's a tremendous concern, the approach that is being taken. I think that the previous administration, they were concerned about immigration. And so what they did was they looked at employers and said, let's take away the incentive for people to come here. The incentive is to come for jobs. Right. And so if you take away that incentive, it then, you know, takes away the motivation for people to want to cross the border illegally.
I know in the previous administration, some families were also separated. We want to make sure that we're clear with that. Tied to the opioid crisis, it's a huge issue across the tri-state. It's a huge issue across our country. And you had actually mentioned at one point, talking about imprisonment and the war on drugs, that the imprisonment of these folks is a new slave system. Can you expand on that a little bit of what you mean?
Absolutely. Right now, the 13th Amendment allows for enslaving people as long as they're incarcerated. Mm-hmm. What that does is creates a profit motive. And so we're paying people in prison anywhere from 26 cents an hour to, you know, maybe $1 an hour to do jobs that we all used to do. They're doing everything from manufacturing, agriculture, and all of those kinds of things. And I think that that's primarily being ignored because it's really shifting jobs and employment away from those of us who, you know, maybe had good paying jobs doing some of those things before. It really became about 30 years ago, it became a real significant problem, mass incarceration in this country. Right. I think everybody should be concerned about what's happening in mass incarceration because we want people to be incarcerated when they're guilty. We don't want a profit motive, and we also don't want a partisan political issue for crime. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that people who are committing crimes are behind bars and people who are innocent don't go to jail just simply because there is a motive, a profit motive behind why they're being incarcerated.
You're in a district, of course, that is predominantly Republican.
Mm-hmm.
You have an uphill battle. Also financially, from a campaign standpoint, mm-hmm. you're up against a lot of money. How do you get to the finish line?
We are running a people-powered campaign. We're relying on people mm-hmm. to both fund our campaign and people to help ensure that we get the word out that I'm around and that I am running so that we can make a difference. We're not trying to go up against the big money campaign. So we're running a campaign where we're getting the word out in much the same way that some of the other campaigns across the country have been able to get in front of people, talk to people, and to make sure that people know that they have an option this year.
If you had to lean to either side, more towards Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, with your values, are you in the middle? Do you lean more towards Hillary or Bernie?
I would say that I'm an individual. And I would say it's difficult to kind of weigh me against either Hillary or Bernie. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there has ever been a politician that I completely agree with, and there's never been a politician that I completely disagree with. I respect Hillary for, her stances and her beliefs about things. I also respect Bernie.
Sure.
So I don't think I would take a position and to say that I'm more aligned with either. I am an individual who has developed my own ideas about many different things. Mm-hmm. I have never been a very partisan person. I've never been engaged in politics. I was never engaged in the party before running for office.
Right.
And it's actually been quite surprising that so many things are governed by partisan politics, because I think the average person does not tend to ascribe to or lean far right or far left.
All right. Well, Dr. Vanessa Enoch, Democratic candidate for the 8th Congressional District, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as we mentioned, we spoke with Congressman Warren Davidson last week on This Week in Cincinnati. If you'd like to see that interview, we have it for you on WCPO.com, the 9 on Your Side YouTube channel. This Week in Cincinnati, we'll be right back.
The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.